Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, almost afternoon. Welcome to the Sony 360 VME studio panel. I am Latifah Muhammad. I am an editor at Billboard, and I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into all things VME.
Hey, I'm Simon Horrocks. I'm the general manager at Gold Digger Sound, which is a multi-room studio in LA. We have 7 functioning studios, one very large room, and we also have an immersive room that's got VME, the Sony 360 system, and Dolby Atmos.
Hi, I'm Ronald Prent. I'm an immersive mix engineer. I've been doing this since 1990 in immersive, starting with 5.1 up to 7.1 to 7.14 to 360 degrees in Sony Walk Mix. My career spans a lifetime of hard rock music, jazz, orchestral stuff, and currently I don't have a studio. I have VME. It's because the big studio I worked in closed last year for obvious commercial reasons. But luckily I was profiled and mix at home with VME.
Hey everybody, I'm Ed McEntee. I'm the chief engineer at Gold Diggers. I do everything from stereo recording all the way up to immersive recording and mixing in 360 and Dolby Atmos. And I use VME all the time at Gold Diggers.
Okay, thank you guys for that. Can you guys also kind of tell us how you heard about VME? How you first heard about it?
So at Gold Diggers, we've had a very long relationship with Sony. We started, our studio opened essentially in January of 2019, and within a few months, we were approached by Sony to install a 360 room in one of our studios so they could showcase the technology to the creative community, had a place for artists to come that was essentially less of a film score and sterile environment, more of a music studio. So we got involved then working with Sony, and essentially they were running the room for us, showcasing the format. And then we got connected with the Sony music side of things, not the Sony electronic things side of things, and began mixing in the format. And Ed came on board right around that time. We started doing more and more mixing in the format prior to even being involved in Atmos or any of that stuff. And then as of last year, we started being one of the places that you can come and get tested and set up for the VME. Yeah. All right. I guess they like that idea out there. All right.
I've been involved in the immersive world very early in 1990 with Sony and Philips started SACD. That was in 5.1, and we did a lot of pioneer work for that in Galaxy Studios in Belgium, where I was then residing as a chief engineer. And for that, it's a long time relationship with Sony for me. So then eventually I ended up in upstate New York, in Auburn, at the Valhalla Studios that had a big immersive setup in speakers in Dolby Atmos and Sony 360. And that's when I picked up my relationship with Sony, kept over the years. And then they showed us the technology when we were doing 360 mixes. We did several Broadway musicals in 360 from Sondheim. And then they showed us the VME technology, and that took care of that. Because once I took the headphones off and the speakers were off, when I thought they were on, I was sold. And that's 3 years ago. So, it immersed and got so much better and even more accurate, like new technology always does. It evolves. But speakers are great, and we do need speakers for our music, but that the headphone is unbelievable.
Not really sure what else I can add about my story from what Simon said, but when I got VME, like 2 years ago at this point, I was just blown away with how close it sounded to our actual room.
Can you guys, we're kind of already talking about this, but can you go a little bit deeper into detail about what VME is and what it does?
Sure. Basically, it's capturing the room and giving you the same experience that you would have listening in the room when you're on headphones. And like the first time when I tried it, I was just blown away because I've tried other kinds that are like this. And this sounded exactly like the room where I had to ask them to turn the speakers off because I thought they were still on. It's really blown my mind compared to a lot of other softwares that are out there about how accurate it is and how easy it is for me to tweak it a little bit and get it exactly sounding like my room that we sit in all the time.
And that's the story that everybody tells. You know, everybody that has that happen to him or her has that same experience. It takes about 10 minutes, and then you're sold. And you, as engineers, we really are, because it is such a great representation of the room you are used to working. It's the combination of your head, the room, and the speakers that are in your room. And one thing that's also very good to know is that it does do up to 16 channels of loudspeakers, but it works in stereo too. I've used it in stereo for mixing, and it's actually a lot of fun. You don't need to have multi-channel for the VME to work, especially with the MV1 Sony headphone. In that combination, you just have the ultimate place to be. And that's what I do. I ended up at home, sitting in my sunroom, looking out at snow, 2 feet, but mixing in the church in Valhalla Studios.
Yeah, so I can't speak from the technical aspect, but I can speak from my personal experience of being measured. So I know that there's a mic in the room, they record the room, they put these microphones in your ears, they go left, center, da, da, da. And then there's a sound that comes out of every single speaker in the room. Our speaker has, how many speakers do we have with our Sony stuff? 554? Yeah, so there's 4 on the floor, 5 around, 5 above, including like left, right, center. And so the audio comes out of those specific speakers. You take them out of your ears, you put the headphones on, and they play the same thing back. And I swear to God, like these 2 guys said, I thought it was broken. I thought I was literally listening to the speakers in the room. It didn't make any sense to my brain. As I said, I had a set of headphones on, and I was like, I don't think it's working. They're like, that it's working. And so for me, I can immediately see the vision of where this is going. So anything that's virtual reality, anything that's augmented reality, any environment where first music, but then other applications of, people walking around in a room, or you think that somebody's behind you. It's kind of unbelievable that they can get that level of technology. I mean, I think Apple's been trying to do it with the AirPods, and they don't even come close to what these guys are doing technologically.
I know that the theme that I'm hearing when you guys first tested out the technology was blown away. Can you, Simon, kind of take me back to your first time experiencing the technology?
Yeah, actually, I had this. It was funny because it's not really the first time that I experienced the technology, because as you said, it evolves, right? So we had switched out the speakers in that room. We were originally on a Genelec system, and then we had switched to PMCs, and there were some upgrades in the software, and Ed had been mixing some songs, and what he likes to do is, get in the weeds on everything, and then I'll come in and I'll just say, I'm not sure that vocal is translating the message of what they're saying. And he'll interpret that in my crazy speak into something that actually ends up transmitting into the music. And I sat down. What was the song that you like? You remember? All right, that's how many we do. We have no idea what the song is. But I heard it, and I immediately called New York. Like, the song wasn't done, and I called our contact at Sony Music, and I was like, we have to get this to people. I'm like, how do we help get this to people? We want to evangelize what this is. And we started discussing some better ways that we could implement it. There's the technology side of it, and then there's the implementation to the consumer side of it. So obviously we're on the first half of the equation here, but that was my blown away reaction, that I immediately had to call them and say, people need to hear this.
Your first experience?
It's the same. And that's really the same in the panel yesterday. Everybody has the same experience. So it's so universal almost, because that's what it does to you. Exactly that. And then, you think, how can the consumer hear it? We're not there yet. Because if the consumer could hear what we can hear, then that's a done deal. Then nobody wants to listen different anymore. So, what it does do is it enable us to make far better products without speakers. So if you think about the younger generation that is trying to do immersive mixing, if it's Dolby Atmos or Sony 360 with Walk Mix, it doesn't matter at this point in time. They want to do immersive. Right now they're using binaural technologies that are available in the market, but some of them are okay, but the result that they make with them are not. But they still go up on the platforms. And so people say, oh, Dolby sucks, or Sony sucks, or Apple sucks. Apple Spatial is really bad. No, it's not. It's shit goes in, shit comes out. Now, it's that simple. And none of these formats are bad. But if you put shit in, it can't make it any better. It can only make it worse. So if we have a technology like this, where a headphone can reproduce a space where you can mix in accurately with speakers that are projected an accurate full frequency response, which binaural doesn't do. If it goes outside of the 120 degrees vision field, the color of the sound in an object changes. It has to, otherwise they cannot put it there. That's the technology. So people that don't know that and have never learned to work with that will make mistakes that they don't know they are making. And if they will be able to work with VME, and even not with a Sony headphone, because it works with any headphone, the better the headphone, the better it sounds. Then they can make far better products. So we get better products out there for the consumer to listen to, and it will make the consumer be more interested in it. Right now there's a lot of shit. If you go on Tidal every month and go check the new list, first of all, you only hear it in binaural, and second of all, most of it sounds the same, and I won't use the word, but it's not really that exciting, to put it that way. There's every now and then there's one that's done well by good engineers that know the technology already, and the difference is huge, because then you play it, you go, whoa. And this technology, and that's why I'm so excited about it, this will allow our younger generation, who has less experience, to hear better.
I wanted to ask, we were talking about the measurement process. Can you guys kind of talk a little bit about that and how long it takes and how accurate your experience has been?
Well, I'll speak to it on a little bit of a different level, but you hit something about people listening. They're consuming their music in a personal listening environment, right? So not everybody has a room that is tuned and has $100,000 worth of speakers in it, but you want to experience this technology. one of the things that we've done is we partnered with Sony to be an environment where I'm inviting everybody here. Come and like listen to it. Come and get the fitting for it. Sit in the room. Like, don't take my word for it. Come and book an appointment and come and sit down and listen to what it is in the room, and then listen to the way it is in your headphones. And you'll have the same reaction that every single one of us has, which is, how the hell did they do this? This is incredible. And the one point that you touched on, it's interesting because right now the way that this technology has been implemented is all about the mix, right? So there's a lot of, basically everything that's been out there is, oh, okay, well, you're used to listening to Queen in this format, or, you know, Elton John, or whatever it is, you know, whatever artist, and then so then you're kind of retroactively putting it into this format. Where the magic's going to happen is really when the creators of the music get it in their hands, they experience it, and then when they're creating the music, they're thinking about where it's going to be in the spatial audio field. You know, one of the cool things about the Sony thing is that it's essentially you're inside a sphere. So when you look at the software, you'll see that it is graphically represented as a sphere, but when you're listening to it, it really is a sphere. So
Especially in headphones.
especially in headphones.
How long?
Ed can speak to how long it takes and
Yeah,
all
that's
that.
what I was gonna ask.
Doesn't take that long.
Okay.
It's like a 15-minute process most of the time, and like checking it out. A lot of the time is spent with the person who just got the measurement going, whoa, because they're blown away, and you're listening to stuff, and like, I just want to say that the really cool part about being able to get your own ears measured and then doing everything with headphones is you can take the room with you. So it's not just like you're walking into a new studio and you have to figure out how everything sounds, because that's what happens. It's like every room's a little bit different. But now you get to take this room home and actually work in it and get to know it. And, you know, you can come back and check your mixes there, and you'll be blown away with how close they sound because the thing's so accurate. And it really doesn't take that long to get a good measurement. I think probably the most invasive part is me putting a microphone in your ear. And after that, I mean, like, it's really easy. We just listen to some beeps and clicks and pops and stuff.
Yeah. Takes about 10 minutes. The whole measurement takes about 10 minutes. And then you're at the part where you think the speakers are still on, and that's what we all talk about. Yeah, we're done. Just turn the speakers off. No, they're off. And this technology is really a big part of its hearing is believing. We can talk about it, like you said. Go make the appointment. Go be measured tomorrow, and you'll have the experience. You'll understand what we're saying, because it really is hearing is believing. And once you've had that, you don't want to listen to another way through headphones anymore.
We kind of pretty much discussed this, but can we further explain how VME differs from your traditional headphone experience? It's obviously more immersive, but can we kind of talk about that?
Yeah, again, it's everybody's used to stereo, so it's right here, it's right there, and the moment you get profiled, you get scanned in there, that disappears. It doesn't exist in such a way anymore. It happens here where the speakers were. So there's here a speaker there, here a speaker there, here a speaker there, or even above you. It depends on the room you're in. So basically, it sounds the same as if you sit in the room and sounds the speakers, whereas stereo is just inside your head, and the vocals in the middle of your head. And we listened to it for years. It's unnatural, but we all learn to live with it. And now we get this experience where we can hear it like we would hear in the room. and that's the biggest environment change. Is it doesn't happen inside your head anymore. It happens around you. And like you said, if you then work with Sony 360 Walk Mix, which gives you the globe, it also visualizes what you're doing. But then you sit with a headphone on, and you actually move something over there, and you hear it go from there to there. You'll hear it that way, and not go from here to here. That's the biggest difference, I think.
Yeah, I basically would say the same thing. There's actually space around you now. And like Ronald's saying, the speakers are in front of you, they're behind you, they're above you, they're below you. It's crazy to be able to actually place things now and not just be like, yeah, it's right there. Like you can actually feel it move around in air like you would in a room.
Yeah, we have a saying as humans that's like you had to be there. And how many people has taken a photo and been like, this is incredible. Like you go to a concert, right? Or you see something like, oh my God. And you're like, oh, that sucks. But that's the difference.
How would you say? How would you say? What kind of workflow? How has VME kind of changed the workflow in the studio?
These guys will tell you, but for me, it's the client comes in and I make sure that their coffee order is right.
It makes me move out of the studio.
You were saying that you didn't have a studio, right?
Right now I don't know, but before that already I would start doing stuff at home and prepare it and then take it to the studio and press play and go, oh great, that works. Because it's a learning curve. It's like buying a new set of speakers. You have to learn how to listen to them, trust them. And the only thing is with VMEs, you get your measure and 10 minutes later you trust them. It goes a lot very quick. But so it changed my way of working in that case. What I really want is that my artist or my client or my producer could hear that. Because for now you still have to be in the room and be scanned once. After that you can take it home. But imagine that your producer could hear it, or your artist who is on the road and he's touring, but you have to do a mix, and it happens a lot to me that they're on the road somewhere and they want to approve the mix. You can send them the mix and they can listen to it the same way you are listening to. So then their comments make sense. Right now we send them a binaural version, and then we have to figure out what the comments mean. Well, that guitar is it's kind of weird to me. What do you mean? Which kind of? Yeah, the one. Well, it appears somewhere on the left side. No, it doesn't. And he had his headphones the wrong way around. Yeah, so you run into those kind of issues, and if they could hear VME like we do, for me, what it does is it speeds up my process. I spend a little less time in the studio. I can do a lot of more prepping easier and not waste time at the studio. And somebody else can use that studio. And right now, I do a lot of prepping at home. And then I go to one of my friends who has a 13.1 setup. And I go play it there. And I listen, okay, I want to change this, and this on speakers. I go home, change it. And so I'm more economical.
I have one thing that I wanted to add based off of what you were just saying is that the approval process has changed for us. So a couple of years ago, we did the Megan Thee Stallion record and we did Chance's record for Tidal. We were dealing specifically with the artist management. The nature of the music industry has changed, where we were communicating with the managers and the producers directly to get the content, to mix it in the format, to get it right to the DSP, which normally in the past we would have dealt with the record label. So when we were trying to deliver the mixes to the manager to have him approve the mixes, he was listening on a set of stereo headphones on his laptop, and he was not getting the experience at all. So now we have the ability to remotely send somebody a copy of the mix, and if they've had the measurements done in our room, they're hearing the exact same thing that we are. And that's a game changer. So
Yeah, I think it's amazing the ability that we can actually give artists to hear things the same way that we're hearing them finally when they're on the road. But the other really great thing, I'm not going to lie, is being able to sit on my couch and prep files and still hear it the same way and deal with all my routing the same way, not being like, oh, I'm hearing this, in stereo right now, and then I'll break it out later on. It's being able to actually get work done from the beginning and hearing it in the way that I know it's going to end up. And then also being able to make a change at the last minute, because a lot of times artists will want to, or maybe they're busy and they can't get back to you until 5 minutes before the thing's due, and then they want to make a bunch of changes, and it's not really a great idea to be doing that stuff blindly without hearing it. And now I can basically be anywhere and have my room and just make the tweaks that I need and actually be able to trust them with this.
Going back to measurements, I know you also mentioned headphones. Are there like a specific type or kind of headphones that are ideal to use?
The Sony headphones are lovely and work very, very well for this format. I also enjoy them in stereo as well. I really do, actually. Yeah, like I have a bunch of pairs of headphones, but I've been using the Sonys more and more just in like day-to-day stereo tracking, and I'm really happy with them. Like, if you haven't tried them, they're super affordable and they sound good. Like, really give them a try.
Yeah. Same here. And I have I have the Audis, I have the Sennheisers, I have all of the high-end headphones over the years and used them a lot. And I got the MP1s last year. I put them on and I go, wait a minute, and that was in stereo. That sounds really good. Just get my Audis back that I know really well. Okay, they're only a quarter of the weight to start with. They're very lightweighted. You can wear them for a long time without get fatigue. And they just sound flat. They sound so true. And even the bottom end, like 10 hertz frequencies, it's there. And it's really amazing. And like I said, I ended up working with them in immersive, but I do use them for stereo mixes too. They're just fun. You put them on there and go, yeah, I get that. I understand that. That sounds correct. And go work with it. I did a couple of weeks ago, for the first time, I did a 916 mix for a client in Austria. And I decided, screw it, I'm going to do this just on the Sony headphone with the VME software. So I was in my studio, but with the software. I mixed it, and I didn't tell the client. I set it away, and I was curious to see what comments came back. And I got only one comment. It sounds great. And I went like, are you sure? What's about the bottom end and the low frequencies? No, they're awesome. We went to 2 Dolby Atmos studios. We played it there. One was a big rig, one was a small rig. It sounds perfect. Don't touch it. Finish it. And then 2 days ago, I did a presentation upstairs in the Neumann room. So at the end of my presentation, I figured, you know what? Because I hadn't heard it on speaker set. I just did it on headphones and left it there. So I played it upstairs in the presentation after I played a lot of other stuff that I know really well. And the room sounds great. And it just carried there. It sounded fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it. It just goes to show of course I spent months learning to work with the headphones that way. And then if you just trust it and you trust your ears, and you've been a mixing engineer for years, you know how to do that. And then it works. It just blew me away. It works.
I don't know any model numbers of anything. There's a bunch of Sony reps here that can tell you exactly what headphone to get for the price range that you want. I believe they're all sitting right over there. And I am not going to tell them how to do their job.
Okay.
I'm trying to be honest.
We also kind of discussed this as well, but can we again kind of talk about how 360 VME differentiates itself from other softwares?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is that it's in a sphere. So it's really the sound of what's happening and where the music is coming from. It feels our studio is unique because we have 4 speakers on the floor. We've actually got them mounted so that there's speakers behind you on the floor. So the curve goes back. In a lot of rooms, they don't have the space to do that, so it doesn't exist there. So I really felt, to me, the main thing that day that I ended up calling New York was that outside of every other format that I've heard, this was by far the most musical, which was the most important thing to me, was that I felt the music more than I have in other formats. And there's a lot of that had to do with Ed's, developing and mixing in the format over a number of years, right? Like, so, and doing a lot of projects and essentially doing what's right for the music. So, we play a lot of stuff back for people in our studio, and there's some mixes that we have that are interesting because the band was in the room, and you get the approach of the band being in the room. And some of them are pop songs that have the vocal arrangements that get bigger around you, and have more impact on certain lines, and really kind of you feel the emotion of what the artist is trying to get across, especially with an incredible singer. And then there's a lot of mixes that are bells and whistles where, maybe some techno music or stuff that's, they want you, stuff bounces around the room. It's like, holy crap, this is like coming at me from every direction. So it really, it makes it more personal for the music, and that's why I'm so adamant about getting this in the hands of creators, because once you experience it, and if you're somebody that's writing music, creating music, thinking about production, what sounds work, now you can think about where it is. You get so much more space in a mix, right? It's like you're trying to cram everything into a stereo field. And now you're like, okay, well, how does it feel when the piano player's over here? There's a lot of mixes that bust the groove, right? Like if you've got a tight rhythm section and everybody's like, well, we're just going to spread them out because we can. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that pocket feels like shit, So that can happen too. The adverse can happen. So understanding and getting into it, and like I said, getting it in the hands of the creators so that they can utilize it as a tool. Like, oh man, it'd be killer if those backgrounds came from above me and not at me. So maybe there's something lyrically that you want it to come from the top or from the bottom. So those are the kind of choices that I think the technology opens up to people creatively.
I couldn't agree more. And that's what you do. You can have, especially with the 360 sphere, it can be an extension of the arrangement of the song. So you don't have to fly everything around. You don't have to always have sounds in every position. Also, sometimes mono sounds just as good for a part of a song. I mixed a song where the artist wanted the verses to be mono in the stereo version. So we ended up, and that worked really well because then the chorus would explode with heavy guitars. And then in the immersive version, we kept the mono in the center channel. And then when the chorus came, we had left, right, rear, bottom, rear, up guitars, because they overdubbed them that way. But in stereo, you pack them together. Here, you put them in any place, and you sit there, and before you know it, your pants are blown off, because it has so much more emotional impact. And then when they're done with their guitar part, it went back to the front again, and it stayed there for the next verse. So it's another tool to create music and compose it.
Yeah, like I really like the fact that it's a new tool to create scenes too in songs where you can have a different verse, a different chorus, and really change things dramatically. But going to VME and why I like it a little bit more than some other softwares I've used that are trying to do this, I can actually tweak stuff with the EQ in there to make the curve and the room feel better to me. Like, if sometimes I maybe want a little bit more low end on the system. And I can just tweak all that right in the VME software rather than being like, oh, well, here's this one algorithm that's been written that sounds like the room and I can't tweak it or do anything to it. I can keep pushing it, and Sony's been so helpful with this. Like, I would show them what I did, and then they would go and make some changes. And every time the software got more and more accurate, and like low end's always a thing to me, especially when we're dealing with hip hop and pop, and getting that stuff right. And for like the first time in a pair of headphones, it actually sounded like it does in the room with low end, where it didn't feel like it was just some made up thing to like have a little bit of fun. It actually was accurate with the ability, because of the ability to tweak it just a little bit to get it more like the room is.
So I want to ask you, because specifically we just did this Chromeo album, right?
Yeah.
So we had just mixed the Chromeo album in Atmos and 360. And when you started talking about the low end and how you were building scenes, can you talk a little bit about what you did in that specific record that was different?
Let me try and remember. I mean, depending on the format, there's use of subwoofers that maybe I wouldn't have done in the past, and I can actually accurately listen to that. I think really, like in that case, we're doing two different mixes in two different formats and trying to have things sound similarly, or similar was a lot easier with the VME, being able to tweak and listen on headphones and know what the room sounded like. But yeah.
Now, we have talked a lot about how much VME has improved what you guys do, but is there anything that you would improve about the technology? And what would that be?
I
wish more people could hear it. That's really all I wish.
That's really it for me. I mean, right now it's on a mobile format through the headphones, but to have people be able to experience it in a room is something completely different, and that's really more the consumer side of it than the creator side of it. And that's the only thing that I would say that needs to really, that there's a little bit of room for improvement on.
Yeah.
Yeah, just accessibility. As far as workflows, what would you say VME, what type of workflows are they good for? I know you were speaking about specific genres and how you've used the technology there, but what about workflows?
I think although genres doesn't really limit you to anything with VME, it works in stereo. That's what I said earlier. And I do a stereo mix, it works fine. I do an immersive mix, it works great. But in any format, if you do a quad mix, it works great. That's the thing, it is agnostic. So it can handle up to 16 channels of loudspeakers in a room where you get scanned in and profiled. And then it's up to you how many of them you use in the project that you are actually doing. And then it doesn't matter what format it is, because it's speakers. And if you have a speaker setup that does the Sony 360 format and you have the Dolby Atmos format in your studio, you get measured twice. And then you choose what you're going to use. And if you would just want stereo, you just send signals to the left and right stereo, you're done.
I know that you don't have a studio. How can your clients experience? How does that work? Since you don't have a.
If the client wants to be present, then I will rent a studio.
Oh, okay.
I'll go to studios that I know, and where I trust the speaker system. And I've lived for that for years, where I just traveled all over Europe and went to clients. And in the summer, I go for a month to Munich to work for a client, and we'll do the mixes there. And then I take my VME with me because I can sit there and mix in my own room and compare to what I hear in my headphones and what I hear there. And if that translates, I can either stay in VME or I can be on the speakers. But my client can hear what he is used to because that's his room. And it would be great if I could profile him in my room, and then I wouldn't have to travel. But sometimes it's nice to work with people too. I don't want to be alone the whole day.
Right? Do you guys want to add anything? You guys have studios as well, so your situation is a little different.
Yeah, we have a studio, so most of the time we just try and get people to come in there, but I'm always trying to, like, especially when people are about to go on tour for the summer, be like, why don't you come over here and get a measurement so we could work on this record together and actually hear the same thing with you not having to come back here or me having to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's it exactly. I recommend everybody come and get a measurement. If you're going to be mixing in this environment, experience it in the room, and take the room with you.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for discussing VME with us. I'm going to take some questions. Does anyone have any questions from the audience? You want to come over here?
Hey, so this is my first time more or less learning about Sony 360, and you mentioned that you can take your 360 VME mix and play it back in what would be considered a Dolby Atmos system. Did I understand that correctly?
No, I think we were talking about listening through the VME software so you can accurately hear your 360 mix, and then there's also the ability to capture the room while it's in the Dolby Atmos format and then listen back through that and accurately hear the way a Dolby Atmos system sounds in that room. But I can also hear the Sony 360 system that we have in our room too. It's a software that basically lets you change the speaker configuration in your headphones very accurately.
Okay, got it. So then once I get a measurement going, you mentioned I can take that with me anywhere, right? And I'm essentially at Gold Diggers, right, in my headphones wherever I go. How does that work, like if I'm playing something off of my phone? Do I have like a Sony 360 VME app for my phone, or?
I am not sure about your phone, but I know I have it on the computer. And when I'm listening back, like I select that as the playback engine, and then I can play everything back through there.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
No? I was going to mention, I think one of the interesting things about VME is that it does work for people that are kind of mobile. I think that that's really important, especially in music creation right now. A lot of young creators may not have a studio, may not have access to certain things. So I think that VME is really good for that. I just want to add that.
You can do it on your laptop.
Okay, I think we're actually done. Thank you. Cool. Well, guys, we're all done. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you to the panelists. Much appreciated.